So Scott, 10 years ago, something triggered in your brain that made you realize that you are no longer going to be employable.
Yeah.
And you made a choice, you made a decision to enact a plan to go all in on yourself, start a business, because you just had the desire to be an entrepreneur. So now let's put this into context. You're married, your 2 kids, you got a pretty good life going, making a good income. But that wasn't enough to satisfy the desire to be an entrepreneur.
Yep.
So, one, how did you get to that point? And what was the plan? What was the process? What was going on in your head 10 years ago today?
Yeah. So 10 years ago, July 10th, 2015 was my last day being employed.
Okay.
So I became a corporate dropout. That kind of coming to that point, you got to probably go back a couple years before I got to that point in my life. But I was in California, living in Los Angeles, working healthcare, Fortune 500 company, doing well. And I wasn't very, I wasn't like satisfied or happy with what I was doing with my life as far as like a career.
Okay.
I mean, outside of that, family, spiritual life, everything was good, but I didn't feel like I was living the destiny that like I felt like God had for me, for who I was going to be, who I needed to be. So kind of backing up, actually, I think a lot of it starts when I actually moved to California. So I moved to Cali officially in 2013 and was there a couple of years. But when I made that move, before then I was living in Maryland where I grew up and worked for a defense contractor, aerospace, was doing well there. But I just kind of wanted to get to California because it just seemed like it was like, not like like the old pioneer days, discovering the Wild West. But after a couple of trips to Cali, earlier in the 2010s, I'm like, man, this is a pretty cool place to be. Why not live here? So, but when I made that move, I was always like very entrepreneurial, doing a lot of side hustles, and I made the move thinking it was time to get really serious about my corporate career. Because my side hustles never gave me the ability to replace my job income, which I was always like really driven to be able to do that. And that started in my early 20s. So I got into real estate investing. I did a bunch of stuff. I was making good money, like a side income for sure. But I could never just, only do my side hustles and make it like a full-time gig.
Sure.
Because my job income was just too, much higher and I needed to make a lot more money. So when I moved to California, took this job with this Fortune 500 healthcare company. During that process, I won't get into all the details, but basically I was not being true to myself, and I was thinking I needed to really focus on being a corporate guy, like getting to like a true C-level position. And I thought to do that, I had to go all in on corporate. And I was very blessed to get this job because I learned a lot, and it was great. And that came in as a leader, making good money, had a good team that had working for me, and I got to really enjoy seeing like Los Angeles is where it was, and I really got to like really experience LA. But that first day at that job, I hated it.
Mm.
And 2 years in, I just knew that it just wasn't for me. So to kind of close up this talk of like kind of how I got there, because I know we'll get into more of it, as we continue on. I just I just felt like it wasn't the calling God had for me, and through a lot of prayer, fasting, just seeking discernment, wisdom, um, and I just felt like it was time to go all in on myself as an entrepreneur. And it wasn't like I didn't have a plan. I thought, I was 15 years in my corporate of my corporate experience out of college. I worked for all these different companies, different industries, worked in I got exposed to many different departments within that 15 years. My goal was to just go into some type of business consulting and really just to get a really high hourly rate, work less, get a high hourly rate, and replace my job income. That's what I kind of set out to do.
Okay. So was it freedom or was it money?
It was freedom.
It was freedom.
All I wanted was freedom.
Okay.
I didn't feel like that. Um, I don't want this to sound bad, but I just kind of thought working for someone was like being a slave.
Okay.
Right. Even though that's obviously not, because I hope no one who works for me feels that way.
Sure.
But everyone has different drives. Everyone has different goals, motivations in life. And I just wanted to be somebody to go and make my own path. And I didn't think I could make my own path just working for someone, in the corporate environments that I was. And that's just the way I am. There's a term I heard a long time ago called 100% unemployable. And I just felt like, even though I was good at my jobs and I gave it everything, and I thought I gave more than what I actually got, and I got a lot, with the salaries and benefits and all that. I just felt like, God just kind of destined me to like build my own thing from scratch. And so I went upon that path, but it didn't just come like without really knowing if this is what I should be doing. Because you kind of start off by saying, I'm married 21 years now, but back then 10 years ago I was, I guess, 11 years going on 12 years. My kids were really young, and one was in preschool, just got into elementary school. They were doing well for kids because we got them into acting, actually, in Cali. So they had this new career. Both are like starting to book jobs and getting these national TV commercials. Um, my wife loved California just from everything that it had to offer. And I just kind of basically said, Lord, give me like the discernment to know this is what you want me to do. And it's something I always wanted to do because I just always knew I was entrepreneurial. I remember when I got out of college, I had some like entrepreneurial experience, if you want to call that, being a DJ and doing like side gigs, like a lot of kids like who grew up in the projects like me. We were just always hustling, cutting grass, shoveling snow in the winter. I was actually doing gig work as a DJ in high school, college. I was actually getting paid for, not just to pay my bills, but so I knew I could, figure out how to make money just like any hustler could do.
Sure.
So when I did graduate college, I tell people I actually retired from DJing because I thought, okay, I got this job now. It's time to get really serious about my corporate career and everything. And so I went upon this journey, and not that I loved or hated what I did. I was actually happy to be making money because I was so poor growing up. But I even said back then, and when I graduated in 2001, that I'm going to work 10 years and then I'm going to start my own company. So it's always been like my goal
Sure.
to do that. So 10 years from 2001, when I graduated college, would have been 2011. Well, I didn't hit that goal. I didn't start a company in 2011, at least not a full-time gig. But as I was getting into making the decision, 10 years ago for this anniversary of being this corporate dropout, I remember there was a few things that kind of happened that was very instrumental in making that decision. So I definitely wasn't fulfilled working. I was working like 80 hours a week, and it was a huge grind. But I also felt like that the company that I work for, when I looked into it, they seemed like they had all these great attention. Attention is the right word. Like
Intention.
intention. There you go. Like a monster from Vietnam. So even though I'm a native English speaker, so fine, it's an inside joke with my wife. It's I didn't think they were truly living out like everything that they said.
Okay.
And I had a problem with that.
Sure.
because it was a publicly traded company.
Mm-hmm.
And, I worked very close with, all the leadership behind the scenes, and it was all about bottom line, making money.
Sure.
Bottom line, making money. And that just wasn't congruent with me. Like, okay, it seemed like a front,
I got you.
to like really care. And not that I'm not saying that no one cared, but profit definitely trumped a lot of the other stuff, at least from what I saw and what I was exposed to. So I had a problem with that. But I remember just not like just going to the office, and just like saying to myself, man, I am not, it's something about greatness. Either I'm not living greatness, I'm not pursuing greatness. And like, how it's like, if you ever seen the movie like Office Space, I just felt like there was just like greatness out there that I needed to go
Sure.
do, because I just felt like that's what like God has like put on me to do something great. So I was always thinking about that, as I was working. And then I remember there was this lady who I got to know. She worked, I think she was a recruiter, and it was her last day at work. And she sent out like when someone's last day of work, they, send out this company-wide email, and they usually say, hey, it's great working with everybody. Today's my last day. And then I'm moving on to this other job. It was like that, but she wasn't moving on to another job. It was her husband and her, they bought this like wine painting franchise. Like, so this is like, 10 years ago. I guess they were really starting to get a lot of popularity back then, where, people come in and paint and drink wine.
Sure.
So it wasn't anything other than, hey, I'm leaving. My this franchise we bought is doing so well. I got to help my company run the business.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just so inspired by that. I'm like, that is, because, usually no one's like quitting, like leaving the company to go, start a company or
Right.
help out. And like that, even as, and I don't even know if they're even still in business. Maybe they are, but that just like did something to me. I'm like, man, this person, corporate person, can, go out, quit their job, go into business full time.
Yeah.
So that was like another thing that kind of was like driving me. And I was just like really inspired by it. But, I made this decision with a little bit of a runway. Like I gave my employer like all this notice. Like I probably gave them like 3 months notice. Like I just said, hey, I'm gonna be leaving. Everything is good. I just feel like I'm gonna go out and branch out on my own.
Okay.
And I gave them plenty of time to, find someone to replace what I was doing and everything. And I remember even my last day at work, they did finally hire somebody. So I worked I was working multiple roles, but they bring this guy in. And I remember my last day at work, like I'm actually like working late trying to help this guy on board. It's like the last day. Like, why am I even doing this? It was pretty insane.
Well, that speaks to character, right? Because a lot of people will leave an organization, whether they want to leave or want to leave, and they'll just, okay, I'm done. I no longer care, right? So to care that much on your last day just speaks to the character. So
yeah. All right. I appreciate that. But so anyways, I made this decision, like I said, 3 months before. It was like early spring when that happened. And now it's summer, so I was waiting for my kids to get out of school. And so basically it was my last day. Nothing like crazy happened, and I just like left. And then like a week later, I moved to Florida. So I've been in Florida ever since. And the crazy thing is like the school year ends late there and it starts early here.
Okay.
So like my kids only had like a 2-week summer, like a 2-week summer break. I mean, they went from, going to school year ends, then we moved to Florida. Like school year starts so early. And maybe that's probably longer than that. Maybe it was a month. Normally like 2 months.
Sure.
But buy house sight unseen. I'm in here, and I didn't know. I mean, I knew I was going to move to Florida. I did try to take this consulting gig that I was originally starting. I wanted to do it. I wanted to see if I could do it in LA and not have to move, but it's just so expensive in LA. Like, oh my goodness. I mean, the rent is like at least 3 times more than what my mortgage was. Just the cost of everything. And I went from when I moved to LA, I had I downgraded from my house that I had back in the Maryland area. It was a house on a golf course. It was pretty big, to the small 1,400 square foot apartment. And that sounds really small, but in LA, everyone thought like, oh my goodness, your apartment's like 1,400 square foot. Like they thought it was like the biggest apartment in the world. I'm like, what? Like this thing is so small. But he had great views. I was in Ranches Palos Verdes. I was overlooking the Pacific Ocean. You could see like whales and dolphins and all that in the water. I mean, it's pretty insane, like where we lived in LA. But when um when when they increased my rent, so I was there a couple years, and then they increased my rent. Like I went to like almost over $4,000 a month for
Mm.
which is like insane. I'm like, okay, I'm not like, I mean, that's probably pretty normal now. I don't know, but back then I thought that was pretty crazy, even for like Southern California. So I remember we left that apartment, and I wanted to move somewhere closer to like central LA for just reducing the commute. 'Cause commute is insane. So we moved to this apartment in like Torrance area, and the apartment, it had like a nice pool and everything, but it was just like there's that term concrete jungle, and I just felt like um I was just like in prison because the density of people is so like there's just people everywhere. These apartment buildings, apartment complexes, hardly ever any green space.
Yeah.
I just was not at peace.
Mhm.
I'm like, I can't, like, I just did not feel comfortable. I mean, I can live in any situation, but I like, we got a nice view from the office. I can see the water. I like seeing the water. I like space. I like, just not feeling so like claustrophobic. So I was just like telling myself, like, why try to build a future here in LA where it costs 10 to 20 times more. Like, I was just talking about rent, but like buying a house legit, like where I wanted to live, a small little house costs at least $3 million.
Sure.
And I'm used to buying houses 300 to $500,000 max, like 10 years ago. So I just like, how does anybody get ahead?
Right.
Like you had to at least have like been established here, have family here. So I just didn't really see that, for short-term plans for me to kind of get ahead. And so I knew going out on my own, quitting my job, becoming this corporate dropout with like no guaranteed income at all. I'm like, I got to reduce cost.
Right.
So Florida was on the map, just because my mom moved here a long time ago when I was in college, and and so I was familiar with Jacksonville. I'm like, man, Jacksonville's so cheap. This is like 2015. It was starting to go up in price a little bit, but like nothing crazy yet. I'm like, I can buy a house for that. Like, I kind of wish I would have bought a bigger house. Like, could have paid a little bit more. Could probably got something, at the beach. But yeah, I bought in St. Johns County, great school district, really, nice house. Don't get me wrong. Though I loved that house. We lived there for like 10 years until recently, and just kind of ventured out into building um, this consulting company. And so I created DeVore Capital Contracting Consulting, which is still up and running today. But what it was back then is not what it is today.
Right.
So I started out just reaching out to companies, putting my information out there as a business consultant. Was picking up clients pretty quick, and I wasn't replacing my job income, but I was making it. But I had a lot of opportunities. Pretty much everyone I met with my background, everyone that wanted to be a business partner with me. Like, hey man, let's like do some business together. And because I'm so entrepreneurial and just like very trusting of people, I was like looking at certain things of like, hey man, maybe building this company is that maybe there's an opportunity to do something with somebody else and some type of partnership. Well, none of those things panned out. Some like panned it really bad. Some were good relationships that I built and I still have to this day. But after about a year of trying to freelance business consulting, I actually pivoted to actually build like more of a traditional construction real estate company. And so from there, over the next 9 years to where it is today, DeVore Capital has grown into doing a lot of things in construction services, primarily with roofing. And from that, so many opportunities of kind of how we've grown has been stemmed from what we do with that service.
Mm. So you said a couple of things in that, right? So we grow and mature a lot. At least we should, from 35 to 45. some of the things that you mentioned, right? So working 80 hours a week. So as your time as an entrepreneur, you find yourself working more than you did
Yeah, absolutely.
back then. You mentioned, the old corporation structure, like the good vision, good intentions, but like profit's king. Like if you're not making money, it really doesn't matter what your intentions are. You got to be able to do that. So do you understand some of that better now than you did 10 years ago?
Oh,
Having ran the business and grown the business and
yeah, I definitely would say yes to that. The thing about, just kind of talk about Fortune 500s and how they work. The you got the CEO, you got COOs, you got the CFO. Well, their boss is the board, and the board represents the shareholders. And the shareholders aren't making money, and then they're going to fire the CEO, they're going to fire the CFO. So they're pushing down, every level of the company to, hey, we got to do more to cut costs, to increase profit, to increase revenue. And, that's just the way it is.
Sure.
And so being exposed to that, I've worked for a couple Fortune 500s and I work for some very large private companies. And, got to kind of see how both of those like kind of operate. And I took a lot from, but I remember when I started DeVore Capital, I actually didn't want to have a kind of a Fortune 500 influence in the company. And that was good and bad. It was good that, we were small, we were agile, we had this, flexibility to do things. But over the years as we were trying to grow, I realized, well, there's a reason why Fortune 500s were very successful.
Sure.
They got processes, they got standards, they got culture, they did all these things. So all that's came, and not that I didn't care about standards and processes, because I was guided by that as a corporate person, but I just wanted this complete like freedom from that. And as an individual, you can do that, but as you're trying to scale and grow a company, you can't really do that. You got to have things in place, or you're just not going to get any traction or momentum. So a lot of things that we've had to go through as far as growing pains probably could have been avoided had I understood these things. And the other thing that I didn't really do starting the company was think about the exit plan at the beginning. There's like begin with the end in mind.
Sure.
I was just trying to replace my job income.
Mhm.
Like I just wanted to like not have to like, work for the man anymore. I was just trying, but then as it became, hey, no, let's actually build a company that is a leader in our community, in our region, and then to grow that to beyond where we want to exit out of it, where we, could potentially build value. And for those who are helping to, drive that value up, they can participate in it. So I didn't think about any of that stuff at the very beginning. So it wasn't until like years on end, I'm like, oh man, this is important to do. We should get to that. So as much as I kind of felt like I maybe was bashing corporate at the very beginning of us having this conversation, a lot of respect for it.
Mhm.
But I think, taking the good, from that, and understanding, that those processes, they have value. There's reasons for it, and then putting it in, and then kind of, being true and authentic to like the values that you say, and so it's not just about, bottom line, money. That would, I think that's important.
When you can blend the two, build a culture that can also produce what the company needs to produce to be able to build legacy, for them as individuals, for the company, for the CEO's family, and then ultimately have an organization that is that you can exit from, that can be sold, that has not just sentimental value and income value for yourself, but we see it all the time. The large entities come in and buy companies because they have value. They've became a leader in this space. They've learned how to build a culture that people want to work for, and and those companies get balled up. You mentioned one of my favorite movies of all time is Office Space, and I've probably seen it 100 times. The main character at the end of the movie finds his freedom, finds his peace doing construction, right? He's out of the cubicle. He's got a shovel in his hand. He's got the work clothes on. And freedom is different for everyone. There's lots of different paths to freedom, and some of those are, like many people have different uh, theories on how do you replace your income. Some, like you did, I'm just going to go all in and I'm going to figure it out along the way. Others are like, okay, what is that side hustle? What's the thing you're passionate about? Do that every waking hour you have when you're not doing your day job. And then once you can afford to make that switch, right? And I don't know if there's a right way or a wrong way. It's just how willing and dedicated are you to do it? Either path is going to require hard work, dedication, sacrifice to be able to be successful. And I think your story shows that it doesn't happen overnight. It's still being written. There's still lots of miles and years to be traveled. Many people today, I believe, they want that instant gratification. They want it quick. And that just doesn't work. The viral sensation has a shelf life, and those are still very rare. What would be your encouragement to someone that is in a situation where they just don't feel fulfilled in what they're doing?
Yeah. So I was an all-in guy, and not saying that everyone should go all in, but I think more people should go all in.
Sure.
Maybe the majority needs to have a bridge and to do that side hustle and, grind it, and eventually they'll get to the point. So I think it's not a one size fits all for everybody.
Sure.
I just knew who I was. I just knew that, man, if I'm just not 100% on this, I'm probably never going to get there.
Right.
And I tried for 15 years to like build a bridge to get to a point, and it just wasn't the path for me.
Right.
So to encourage people who just don't get that instant gratification, like I would say, like everyone's story is different. Everyone has a different journey. And that's the beauty of it. You can even relate it to like everyone has a different starting point.
Yeah.
Some people grow up, from a family, single mom in the projects, some people come from wealth. It doesn't matter. Everyone has a different path. And none of those are limiting. And actually, I think the more adversity you overcome, the better you are actually like wanting to like do more to get out of the situation.
Right.
And if you came from a life of comfort. But I respect those who come from, like means, but then they're actually not given everything. They actually, have parents who know how to, put boundaries around them so that they actually have to still work and earn it. So that's why, that just goes to show like everyone has a different journey, everyone has a different path. But that's what makes it so beautiful. I'm so always inspired by you see these stories of like Ray Kroc and Colonel Sanders and all these people who were in their 40s and 50s before they did their thing. I'm in my mid 40s. I mean, I started in my mid 30s when I made this journey, but everybody's path is different. And, just a couple things come to mind that I hear that I'm just like really really mean something when I hear. They said, if you make money fast, you develop ego. If you make money slow, you develop character.
Sure.
So it's like a character building thing. Yeah, man, I wish I was already making like $120 a year today, but I haven't got there yet. Maybe next month I might hit that mark, but it's a character building thing. It makes you value it. And, just to kind of touch on my faith, like I know who I am as a person too. So I feel like if I would have just got success quick, my ego would probably be through the roof. I'd probably be like a jerk. You probably think I'm a jerk right now, but I'd probably be even more of a jerk. Like, look at me, look how great I am, right? And so I'm actually glad that the Lord has put me through this refining process because it makes you just appreciate everything so much more.
Right.
So when you do get a win, I'm like, my goodness, I'm like, it almost like makes me like emotional. Like, man, Lord, thank you. Like that I was able to do this and that we're here. Like 10 years ago today, I made this decision, my last day at work, to look back and say, man, I was able to do it. I was able to like now build a company. I got people who work for the company and, we're growing, we go through our growing pains even to this day. But man, just to look back and just to have that gratitude. And then just the last thing I'll say is, when you ask me, was it money or freedom? 100% freedom. Cody Sanchez says, you don't want to be rich, you want to be free. And that's all I've been wanting to do my whole life is just to be free. And free as in, I can decide what I want to do. Obviously, I can't just like go and be free and like never do anything to create any, do something that creates something that has a positive return. That's not the freedom I'm talking about, but I can choose, you know, how I want to build a business, what services I want to employ, who I want to be part of the team, who I want to bring on. But freedom has always been what I've been after my whole life.
Sure. They say you only lose when you quit.
Yeah.
Gary Vaynerchuk is big on just get started now. Like, you're 40 years old, who cares? I'm not going to use the language that he used when he says that, but just you get started. Get started in what you're seeking after, and like your story, through prayer, through counsel, through preparation to get to that point. A lot of people get a thought and they react to that thought quickly without prayer, without counsel, without any of the preparation to make that decision, and they jump all in, and that's cool. But there's rarely success in that knee-jerk reaction to, all right, I'm out today. I think we've all made those. It sounds like a good idea. Let's just go all in quickly, and without the preparation and the planning, that doesn't work. So put a plan together. How are you going to execute it, and then be disciplined enough to not quit? Because as long as you keep trying, you're still winning.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, even though I went all in, like, I didn't just make that as a snap decision. I did have a plan. I did have a nest egg.
Yeah.
I did have, I had that. I didn't have it fully planned out because I did pivot a lot.
Sure.
Like I thought I was just going to be a solopreneur, and, could I have only done that and be successful? I think so. But I like to do things, with other people. I like to do things as a team. That's just like my natural thing is like to team up on things.
Yeah. It comes from your love of basketball, right? There's you're 3-on-3 and you're 5-on-5. You're playing with a team. The other two, you need those other people. You can't play as good as you think you are. You can't play 1-on-3 and win.
I agree.
Right. You gotta have 3 that are solid going against 3 that are solid.
Yeah. And even in just going with that, playing basketball, I was always just a facilitator. I would always give up my shot that set someone up to score.
Sure.
I just enjoyed setting somebody up to get a good shot.
Yeah.
And that's just the way I played. I've just always been wanting to get everyone involved and to facilitate. And then, with that, I just knew I was never going to quit.
Right.
I'm just not a quitter.
Right.
Most people not only quit, but they also just never do what they say.
Yeah.
So two things that I just did not want to be is someone who just says they're going to do stuff and never does it. And then once you do something, quit.
Sure.
So I think if you just have that as who you are, you'll be, not that you'll have instant success, but if you go at it and over time, you will get these wins, you will get success, and it will be your path and your journey. So that's it. I didn't want to look back on my deathbed. I know this is cliche, but I didn't want to be 80, 90 years old and have the what ifs. You have one life.
That's it.
Right? One life, take your shots.
Yep.
And that's me. I'm going to take my shots. I came from poverty, so I never had money growing up. So everything I have is just a bonus. I don't know, my wife hears that, she's like, okay, well, now we got to tame it a little bit, which I think I do. But again, I'm going to take my shots. And even if taking your shots leads to failure, that doesn't mean it's the end.
Right.
Because I'm never going to quit.
Right.
I'm going to get up, dust myself off. What's that song? Is that a Leah song? Knock yourself, actually, probably too young for a Leah. But, dust myself off, I'm going to get up and I'm going to keep going.
Yep.
Obviously being smart and wise, hopefully you don't get to a point where, something really bad will happen. But if it were, you just got to dust yourself off, get back up and try again.
That's it. Well, I can't think of a better way to close.
Yeah.
So, appreciate it.